Hiya, this is Ghosty speaking, and welcome back to the Underworld. My channel, my videos, my domain, and I'm just gonna jump right into it and go balls deep. We are talking about Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League. And, oh boy, I indeed, like the title or whatever, thumbnail, whatever it is, says, I have played the closed alpha test. And now that the NDA has been gracefully lifted, I'm here in the flesh, and the blood and bone, ready to talk about it all. But before we do start, and before I get into anything, I am going to give you the obvious warning of spoilers. This is your first and final warning for spoilers, and even though there's not much that goes on, well, don't get me wrong, there is a lot that goes on in the alpha. But when it comes to story details and, plot-wise and all, the spoiler territory isn't too dangerous. So if you want to watch, feel free to. If not, this is your time to click off, and that's all. If you are still here, grab a snack, sit back, relax, and join me in conversation and controversy as I go balls deep into Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League. So, first things first, just to get my opinion on the board immediately, I'm excited for it. I cannot wait to get into the game myself and really do everything that it has to offer and everything that I can do. And unfortunately, a lot of others don't feel the same way. And another thing I want to mention off the bat is that, well, speaking of, I really do love Batman, and I am a massive Arkham fan. So returning to this world and this universe is truly something special. In my heart, at least. In my eyes, it is. And I've been excited for this from the get-go. We didn't know anything about it. Obviously, it's been in making for a while now. And it's been even longer since we've been in this world. So that alone is something that made me look forward to it. And from the very beginning, it's a no-brainer what the game would be about. It's literally called fucking Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League. So, yeah. Obviously, that sounds badass, and as a DC fan, I was real into it. And honestly, like everyone else, this is nothing like I expected. But I still kept an open mind with it, and I tried maintaining it, despite the ups and downs that I went through. And thankfully, I got the chance, and I got the opportunity to actually play the closed alpha test. And oh boy, I will say happily, I loved it. And I can't express that enough, because... Thank fucking God. We've gotten some beans spilled and, pants pulled down to reveal some things throughout, the years. Like leaks and rumors and little, tidbits of info here and there telling us what the game would be. And thankfully, I needed to get in there myself and really feel it and play it for myself and see how I felt about it. I really wanted to like it because... Again, massive Arkham fan, and I love this fucking universe so much. And now, it's not only the Arkham, Batverse, and Batman and his mythos, but it's the DC universe as a whole. It expanded so wide and so vast that I'm so excited to see what they bring, because there's so much potential. With the story, the base game, DLC, updates, and dare I say the cursed words, live service features. But... don't shit yourself just yet, because we have no idea what it's going to be. We saw leaks, and we're just now aware of its existence. Somewhere in there, it could be post-game, it could be DLC only, not sure. But regardless of how you want to put it, there is potential. With how the rest of the game has been executed so far, I think they could pull it off, if done right, obviously. But, hell, the... Alpha had not a teaspoon, not an ounce of live service content, so I can't even talk on that if I wanted to. But from my experience, what I can talk about is that stuff that I did play through and, yada yada. So, I'll get into that. Alright, so let's talk about how the game plays and what kind of game it is. We all know by now that it's a looter shooter, action, third-person shooter type of game, and that's that. There's no changing that. And honestly... even though we had that brilliant, gameplay style from that golden trilogy that is the Arkham series, Arkham Origins doesn't count in this. I'm sorry. I love that game too, but it just doesn't. But going from that to this game nearly a decade later, there's bound to be some changes. Especially with how gaming has transformed over the years and throughout the time, between here and last game in the Arkham universe. A little shocked that they did change it, yes. Did they need to? Not really. But at the same time, like in the Arkham series, I think they had mastered that kind of gameplay and that style. And I don't want to say this game is perfect in that regard, but I will say that they did it and they executed it to the best of their abilities. They aimed for the looter shooter and they aimed to make it unique and fun, while also, keeping that passion and love for the characters and universe. And coming from me, I personally think that they hit the mark. I'm not going to piss on your shoulder and tell you it's raining, and I'm certainly not going to bet on black and tell you all to vote on red knowing the result. I wouldn't take my opinion as your own. Don't be a sheep. I would keep an open mind in it and, go into it if you're interested. Even if you're not, I would, watch it or something. Give it a shot, at least, if you are somewhat interested in it, and try to play it for yourself. But I'm also not the only one with that opinion, and I'm not the only one with actual interest in the game, because now that other people have played the game themselves, outside of reviewers and people like IGN that suck major ass and then give it a shitty score, shitting all over it, people have actually come out and said how they like the game and how fun it is. And now, surprisingly, it's flipped around, and now the minority is the one shitting on it. So, it's kind of a hit or miss for a lot of people. It's one or the other and not much in between. Personally though, like a lot of other people are saying, I personally can't wait to hop back into it. And as all members of the squad, each member we have all plays differently, relating to how you want to play and correlating to your play style. We have Deadshot, Captain Boomerang, King Shark, and Harley Quinn. Which brings me to these, the members of the squad and my experience with it. Again, my time was limited with the alpha, and I tried, I couldn't do all the side stuff as much as I wanted to, but I did kind of play all of them a fair amount, but I will admit to playing Boomer the most, because he was so fun, and I just love zip-zapping around with him. But first up, I'll talk about Floyd Lawton, aka Deadshot, what seems to be the leader, if you want to call him that, of the squad. I wouldn't say there's leader, but he's more of the kind of, leader role. First of all, he's black. Which, alright, hold on. Don't get your panties in a twist just yet. First of all, that's not a bad thing. But he is black. Which, firstly, doesn't make sense, considering that we've seen Deadshot in the Arkham universe multiple times now. And he's always been a white male. Thankfully, this is not something that they ignored or just retconned, but they actually did give it an in-game, in-universe canon reasoning of why he's different now, which I always appreciate. It's just a little bit extra bit of effort for some more lore and, more depth for the universe. But as for this, new Deadshot, or should I call him OG, or original Deadshot, since he was the first? I don't know. The old white guy was an imposter, and the real Deadshot came around and murked him. So now we have the real Deadshot to play as. But just like every other member, we have 2 guns, a traversal, a special, throwables, and that's about it. And I don't know, it's Deadshot. So if you want to take a lucky guess of what his abilities are, then fucking be my guest. Because it's Deadshot. It's pretty self-explanatory. He is the world's greatest assassin and best marksman. So, it's pretty much a bunch of fucking guns shooting, So anyways, I started blasting. And that's pretty much it. But before I go any further, let me say this real quick. The base of operations for the squad is in the Hall of Justice, which is, I think, perfect because there's all these kind of displays you can interact with and hear about the league and see them and their full designs, and it is very beautiful. It's a gorgeous setting, and again, it's the Hall of Justice. What is there not to love? Unless you just hate them for some reason. But that's how it is, and each member of the squad steals an item or some kind of memorabilia from their collections. So with Deadshot first, his traversal is a jetpack that he steals that is originally from Gizmo. which is a DC villain, or Teen Titans villain, however you want to put that. But yeah, Gizmo is also in the game. Gizmo, Toyman, and other characters that I can't really recall right now, they're in the game, which is pretty cool. More DC characters, you love to see it. But he has a jetpack, and to put it frank, it's ass. Alright, well, I'm not gonna get ahead of myself, but I will say that starting out, it's ass. I'm sure, well, there are skill trees, I'm positive about that, skill trees, upgrades, and all, but when starting out, the fuel on that jetpack is little to none. So whenever I would skyrocket into the sky, I'd be back down on the ground in an instant, just because I would use up all the fuel in one go and to try to fly around as quickly as possible. Hopefully I can get that straight and work it out in the full game, but we'll see. Narratively, I think from what I can remember, he's really the only one with a real personal story. Besides, you know, like the hero-villain relationships with the League and all. Because he has a daughter that he obviously needs to survive for and get out of this shit show of a mess that he's in now. And he has a daughter. And I'm not going to say anything out loud, but on screen you can see what I'm talking about. Because it might come up again due to leaks and rumors. Maybe she might come up again. Just so you know. Thought I'd mention it. But yeah, Deadshot has a daughter, and that's that. Next up is George Harkness, aka Captain Boomerang. My favorite Australian, at least in the game so far. And God, I love him. He is so goddamn fun. And Boomer, yeah, he's really fun in this game. I think he has a sniper, and I know he had a shotgun, but his traversal is really interesting because he ends up stealing a Speed Force gauntlet, which, if you don't know what the Speed Force is, it's essentially the power of the Flash and how his whole like power and ability works. But in this time, it's harnessed in a gauntlet, and Boomer steals it. And he uses it in his boomerangs, and when he throws a boomerang, wherever it ends up landing, he, you know, speeds over there. So it's so fast, it's pretty much like teleportation, but it keeps up the momentum. You can zoom wherever, and it is so fun. It's not only fun, but like, actually, it's not only Boomer, but just the entire game. So from what I've played so far, obviously, it's funny. Hopefully, someone will agree with me on this. I thought it was fucking hilarious. Whenever I wasn't hyper fixating on either the gameplay or the universe, I was always laughing. Every joke landed for me, and even this, like the subtlest things, the smallest of things, got a laugh out of me. And I just thought it was really funny the whole way through. I can't wait to see what else the game has to offer, especially with like DLC characters or the actual hero-villain interactions and all. I can't wait. One thing that was funny to me that will help me transition to the next character, out of every fucking item that he could steal, every single piece of super-powered like merchandise or memorabilia, King Shark steals Riddler's bowler hat, which I'll get to Riddler because I'm so fucking glad he's back. But we'll get into that. We will wait. We'll get into that because I'm smiling ear to ear. First, King Shark. I'm not even gonna try to pronounce his name right now because I don't want to butcher it, and I just want to get into it. And I'm pretty sure that I played King Shark the least in my test, but it was more along the lines of just wanting to play the other squad members more, because I kind of assumed what he would be, just like a big brawler, which is essentially what he is, outside of his weaponry and all, which is he has a minigun, which is, I have to admit, pretty fucking cool. But outside of that, he's a big fucking shark. I don't know what else you would expect. He does have his own powers too, though. He has these like massive, powerful, like horizontal and vertical leaps that he could do as traversal, and for damage wise, like he could come down into a slam. I was hoping for that, like bloody, brutal gameplay with him, and that is what we got. He doesn't disappoint with that stuff. Kind of like Venom in Spider-Man 2, where he's literally biting people's heads off and literally breaking people in half and just brutalizing everything and everyone. And I am also glad that they didn't go down the direction of him being the dumb character. Normally, I don't mind that take on the character. Like, use James Gunn's Suicide Squad movie, for example. King Shark is present, but he's more of this, like, no-brain having bullet sponge than anything. And in this case, they went a whole complete different direction. He is super smart to the point where he's like literally nerdy. He is super strong, and he is a threat to literally everything around him, which I think is the right direction for the character, especially considering he's part of the main members. So yeah. And then, unfortunately, my least favorite character to play as, and that might be my fault, Harley Quinzel, aka Harley Quinn. And it really does pain me to say that because I love her character so much. I do prefer her and Joker together than separate or on their own, but I still appreciate and love them regardless. And Harley's on her own in this one, but this is where things get a little tricky. And this is where I will bring up Arkham again and say a few things about her character and her loadout. Harley's traversal is a bat grapple that she steals, which is interesting because I think Harley could have so much more. Number one, I couldn't get her traversal down because, again, I had a limited time to play the alpha myself, and I couldn't nail it because you could really swing and swing with the bat grapple and even like perch onto rooftops and jump off. It's kind of like the grapnel boost, just obviously not as fast or floaty and efficient as Batman, but with Harley you could do that and you could jump off the rooftops and keep on swinging. I couldn't get that down. Again, that is my fault, but I couldn't get that down, so her traversal was a bit awkward for me, and I just couldn't keep the momentum up because the cooldowns, actually, the traversal cooldowns, I feel like could be a little fixed, especially hers, because the time that it takes to actually swing fights back and forth with the cooldown of the ability, and you're just stuck in the middle of this shit show trying to figure out how it works. I didn't have any upgrades or anything like that, so that could be why, but literally the cooldown and the duration of the swings do not coincide at all. At least for me, it was a mess. But staying on topic with Harley and Arkham, again, it pains me to say this, but in my experience, I think Harley is somewhat of a disappointment. And that brings me not only to a problem with her character in this game, but also to just overall in the game. The gameplay is all very fluid. It's very fast paced all the time. There's a lot going on at once all the time, but it also runs very well, and everything runs like butter, very smooth, very nicely, besides Melee. I think Melee is a bit stiff, and I vividly remember a sequence in, like, I think a random encounter with some Brainiac, like thugs or goons, whatever they're called, where I think I was meleeing, and I'm pretty sure I had the same downward strike animation over and over again with Harley and her like baseball bat. It was awful. I can't lie. But I already talked about what kind of game this is, and that being the third-person action looter shooter. It's not the problem. The problem is that they have Melee in the game, and they had this Melee system. But it is pretty disappointing to see how flat it falls when comparing it to the nearly flawless free flow combat system that they've had before, that the same team has done over and over again beforehand. But going back to Harley herself, I think I only say it's a disappointment because of what she had been previously and what could have been in this game. And again, it's not an Arkham game, it doesn't have to be an Arkham game, but this time around she's obviously not doing flips and cartwheels just to dodge something. It's not that smooth, fluid combat system anymore when it comes to Melee, even though it is in everything else, so it's not that bad. But then again, in her, her arsenal, beforehand she had her laughing gas, she had the jack-in-the-boxes, she even had her own psychosis mode. And in this one, she just has Batman's grappling hook and his little bat drone to go along with it. And I don't think that's really an issue. I'm sure my opinion will flip-flop once I'm back into the game and actually am able to get a hang of her traversal. But just character-wise, I feel like there's a lot more room for creativity and originality with her character, especially with how massive she's gotten in popularity. And people, I think, would want to see more of her arsenal, and not just her, taking something from another character, if that makes sense. But I don't know, we'll see. But from my little session with her, I think it was fun. I just prefer her the least, at least for now. But moving away from Harley and the squad, let's move on to, I was going to say the League, but actually let's stay on the villains. because I want to and I need to mention that. Because, oh boy, I love evil. I do, I can't lie. I've just always preferred the villains over the heroes, bad over good, dark over light side, that kind of situation. And in this one, I'm finally glad that we're able to play as the villains and see everything from their perspective. But also, with this game, we play as the Arkham characters, which is honestly just a cherry on top of the cake that we already had. But speaking of the villains, like I mentioned already, we have the Riddler. Which, oh boy, this might sound surprising and might shock you all. And that is that from the Riddler trophies to the riddles themselves, any puzzles, anything, the character overall, and everything that they've done with him in these games, I love it to bits. And I promise you, no one is holding a gun to my head. I genuinely mean that. I was very enthusiastic and so happy to see him return. I was jumping with joy and clicking my heels and shit, but I do have a very unsettling feeling in my gut that I am hoping to God that I'm wrong about, and that is because it is the villains, like I said, it is Suicide Squad, and with how that looks and how everything looks so far, unfortunate reality is he might end up dead. And there's no other way of putting that. Either I think one of the heroes are going to kill him, or we're going to kill him ourselves. And I really hope I'm wrong about it, but honestly, it might be fan service to a lot of fucking people out there. Not me included. I will shed a tear for little Eddie while I pull the trigger, if that does happen. But for now, I can hope and cope with it until I see it myself. But besides Riddler, staying in Gotham's rogues, we have Penguin. And honestly, everyone could end up dead by the end of this game. I don't know. But Penguin, I don't see that happening with. Maybe, I don't know. But I don't think so, because in this game, he's more like a Jabba the Hutt of Metropolis. He's bigger, he's older, and he's fatter. And he sits in his lair and does fuck all. Well, he does enough to actually have like an NPC safe zone and a whole menu for him and a player. So maybe not. But he is obviously present, of course, because why wouldn't he be? Actually, it's impressive. He's one of the few characters to show up in every installment of this universe. So props to Penguin, honestly. I'm glad to see the old bird still kicking. It might change. Maybe, again, maybe not. But as I was saying, he is this like weapons arms dealer for all this high tech and like alien shit that they have. And I think it's a cool way to, one, implement his character again, and two, have a in-universe explanation for where they get all this, crazy weaponry from. And that's about it for Penguin. We'll have to wait and see what else there is. He might die of old age first, but we'll see. And now let's talk about a villain that I won't talk about too much on, just because I want to get to other things, and we haven't seen too much of him. But Brainiac, the character behind it all, and who I think will actually be the main antagonist, main villain, and probably final boss battle. Because narratively, we might end up killing each member of the League, which is definitely possible, but I won't be surprised if it goes about the ways of the squad reversing the brainwashing and acting like they're killing the League and having Waller believe that they're actually doing it, but in secret they're actually healing the League and reverting them back to their original selves, and then, along the way getting the League back together in order to fight against Brainiac and defeat him and stop him. But for the character of Brainiac, I do love him. I can't wait to see what he looks like in his design, his abilities, personality and all. I'm glad that we're getting another adaptation of him, and now something I never thought I would be able to say before, but we actually are getting Arkham Brainiac, which is weird to say, but that's how it is. Something that I should have said from the get-go is that the alpha just ends. It's the first chapter of the game, and then the second chapter starts, and it just ends very abruptly. And it blue balls you so bad, I can't explain it. If you played the alpha, then you hopefully understand, but because of that, you don't really see Brainiac, but you definitely feel this looming presence and having this shadow over you. His eyes are always on you, and I'm not talking about just his skull ship, which is, I will admit, a really cool like background design. But even like the tentacles everywhere around the city and the destruction that comes with him and the effect that he has on the world, it's great for storytelling and also just a overall badass visual. And actually, speaking of the city, I haven't really talked on Metropolis yet, but I think it is a fresh and new, exciting playground to work with, especially since they're trying to expand the DC universe. That's a great way to start it off, or at least just have it in this game. And honestly, despite all of the death and destruction everywhere, I think the city is still full of life. And this might make sense more as a fan than a gamer, but I think you could tell that there's remnants and like memories of the past and everything that came before Brainiac and before the League's destruction. And I only say that because you can see the love and understanding of this universe and the mythos put into the game, and how the city is treated as its own character, even despite all the brainwashing and, Brainiac's domination. But outside of the narratives and all, gameplay wise, it is just like everything else. It is non-stop to action, it's non-stop fluidity, and again, it's a lot of shit going on all at once a lot of the time. But something I do have to mention are the same rinse and repeat side quests, and then random encounters that happen everywhere throughout the map, where you either stand in point A, jacking off waiting to capture it, and then you have to go over to point B to do the same thing. Or where you have to stay in a specific area, fighting off enemies until the time hits 0. And I have to admit, they are repetitive. And man, there were a lot of them. I'm hoping that there's a lot more like random encounters and such in the full game than what it was in the alpha. So it is quite unfortunate, but we haven't seen it yet, and I'm going to use the League as an excuse. We can hope. But overall, Brainiac, the map and all, thumbs up from me. For the most part, for now. But with Brainiac comes obviously his brainwashed minions, which is the whole point of the damn game, which is killing the Justice League. And I love it. Well, let's not get ahead of ourselves. It really depends on how they execute it, but for the League themselves and the characters within it, I love it. They all look great, I think they sound great. God rest his soul, rest in peace, the best to ever fucking do it, Kevin Conroy. Oh, this is his last performance, and I'm gonna get into Batman. But overall, the designs, the voice acting, everything about the Leagues that from what we've seen in the alpha and the trailers and whatnot, I think they all look fucking phenomenal. I know the boss battles are gonna be so damn cool and so much fun. We have Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, The Flash, and Green Lantern. If I could, I would say they really do them justice. No, okay. Seriously though, I'm loving that we finally had the League, and again, it's a cherry on top, and it makes everything better that it's the Arkhamverse, but it also depends on how everything is executed and how it's all done. Narratively, game-wise, all of it. They really have to pull it off and pull a fucking miracle to have it work. And I'll be the first one to say this, it was an interesting and very bold choice to have the League's debut and first appearance as villains, plus brainwashed. Obviously, I'm glad to see the League show up anytime, but like we all know, it is in the Arkhamverse, and this is the very first time that we've seen not only the League, but every member in the team besides Batman. And I'm aware that it is a little disappointing, and it's got a lot of people's panties twisted, and I don't necessarily agree with it, and agree with this being their debut. But with what they're doing, I understand. Again, it all depends on execution. I'm open to it, and I just want to see how they play their cards. Unfortunately, dyslexia affects a lot of people and is very common, and a lot of people, for some reason, can't understand the concept of the game, even if it's the literal title, Kill the Justice League. And like I already said, I understand how you'd get upset, but we don't know what's going to happen. It may happen, it may not. But hypothetically, if it did happen, I need two things. Worthy deaths. I need worthy deaths for each and every character of the League, but I cannot express this enough, especially Batman. Especially Batman. And I think that goes without saying, But no matter who it is, they could off one character, they could off all of them. What do I know? But if they actually do end up pulling that trigger, and if they have the balls to do so, Jesus Christ. If it does happen, I need deaths that are honorable and appropriate for each member of the league. And with the league, the other point I had was that I need to see the characters at their core. We've seen this Batman time and time again throughout this entire universe, and we know his character. We've seen him, and even though we have seen that, I do hope we see it again. I will admit part of it is because Kevin Conroy is gone, and this will be one of his major final appearances as Batman. But even without that fact, I still hope that we do get the true Batman. And it also goes for every other member of this team. Because again, this is their first appearance, and I don't care if it's either in flashbacks or memories, or maybe even just a glimpse into their true selves. I hope we see how the characters are originally. We do kind of get that in a way, but it's more of an introduction to them. In the Hall of Justice, they have it as a walk-in exhibit, like a museum, where you can go around and interact with each display, which I did, trust me. And even though it is for kids and the public to walk in and see your favorite superhero and whatnot, but I think it's a pretty dope way to introduce the characters before actually introducing them, as well as just showing how the character originally is. But with that, with the characterization and everything that we've seen, including their character designs, Superman looks and sounds amazing. Same with Green Lantern and Wonder Woman. The Flash, I think, is a bit too over-designed, but I still like the end result. And dare I say it, but in all honesty, this Batsuit might be his best one yet. And I'm not too big on the ear parts of the cowl, but just head to toe, I think he looks nearly perfect. He looks actually fucking flawless. And I'm upset that I can't play with it or use it, and he might end up dead in it. But regardless, I think he looks fucking phenomenal, and I can't wait to see it more in-game. But let's talk about that, the man himself. Batman. And everything going on with him in this game, this universe. And I think he is Rocksteady's magnum opus. Coming from the Arkham trilogy, again, no one expected what we would get, and no one could see what was coming. But like it or not, he is in the game, and he has a major role. He is one of the main antagonists in this game, and it's going to be so goddamn cool to see it from the villain's perspective, and being the hunted instead of the hunter, and we could see and fight against the shadows, and we're the ones in fear. I think it's a very cool kind of perspective that we're finally going to be able to experience, not only with Batman, but just with Arkham Batman as well, because we're so used to being on the other end. And even in the alpha, we have this mission, which is done so goddamn well, and what was my favorite part of it? Yeah, I will admit I'm biased, but we had this Batman museum, where it is again, displays and all that you can interact with. It's a walkthrough exhibit, and it showcases each step of Batman's crusade, and it shows everything from the previous Arkham games. And I think it is beautiful, because not only can you interact with each and every one of them, like Mr. Freeze, Arkham Knight, Riddler, Penguin, Mad Hatter, all of them, but Batman himself does show up. And then you're in that exact position of being the most vulnerable and being the prey. You're stuck in the shadows, surrounded by nothing but darkness. You actually have to fear him, and you're shitting yourself, not knowing where he's at, if he's even there to begin with. And man, it's such a cool fucking level. I can't express that enough. But it does end with Batman with a gun. And I'm about to get to that. I just want to have a quick mention of Batman in gameplay. Because you can actually spot him watching you and lurking around in the shadows and rooftops and all. Which is a pretty cool parallel to Azrael from before. But also, even when the squad hacks into the broadcasting and comms, you could hear Batman on the other end. And it is so goddamn cool. He's talking to, the League or Brainiac or all the minions and all. It's just really damn cool. And even though it's not a Batman game, there's so much Batman, which I fucking love. And I can't wait to see it in its entirety. But back to Batman with a gun. Because again, that has a lot of people's panties twisted, and it's turning everyone's butter in the wrong way. And well, I get it. I really do. I am the biggest Arkham fan that I know, and I would take a million more Arkham games if I were able to. But that's not the case. And we have Batman in this again, and even though I love this character so much, and especially including this specific version of the character with Arkham Batman, I really want them to do him justice. Whether or not it be the story, in gameplay, in a boss battle, and even in death. If it does happen, they need to do him justice. Like him holding a gun, for example, and killing people. Because there are policemen and guards and whoever it is. Corpses lying around with batarangs lodged in them and pinned them against the walls and all. And I won't lie, it looks fucking awesome. It looks really damn cool. But he obviously has a major no-kill rule, which I think should be implemented for every version of the character that comes to either big screen, the pages, gaming, whatever it is. I think that's a big part of his character. And it goes the same way with guns or like any lethal weaponry and gadgets and all. And you might be in the same boat of a lot of other people saying how this negates and diminishes and kind of ruins the character. Which I can understand, I can see where you're coming from, but I don't agree with it. Necessarily because I think people are overlooking the plot of this game and the whole point of it because it's not an Arkham game and it's not what they wanted. I think a lot of people, majority of the people that are complaining about it or hating on it are really overestimating Batman as a character and overlooking Brainiac's strength. Because all in all, in the end, he is human. And take a look at all the other members of the League that are brainwashed. The Flash, Green Lantern, fucking Superman of all characters. And that's just the League that we've seen that Brainiac is able to easily take a hold of. And honestly, I shock myself by saying that because I justify and defend Batman in every argument. I really do. But this is nothing like we've seen before. We have played the Arkham games ourselves and have seen what he's encountered, and it is nothing like this. And I also don't know why people are using him with a gun as a valid argument, because it's like one very specific scene that they decided to show in the trailers, and it's really early on. It's really not that bad. And to be fair, a gun is a simple and very efficient way to kill. Well, hell, it's Batman. He knows that. He's well aware of that. He would be the one to know. People are acting like he added guns to his arsenal. He doesn't have a Glock on his utility belt. People are acting like he opens his cape up and there's a Taliban worth of bombs underneath. It's not like that. It's still Batman. It's just a very infamous shot, and honestly, it feels like the Spider-Man 2 screenshot all over again. It's god damn it. But even besides that, the whole fact of Batman being in this brings some conversation and controversy, like I said way earlier. And there's an argument about how it does ruin his character. And again, I can understand it, and to a certain extent, I kind of agree with it. But I'm going to wait and just see what they do with it. Because beforehand, we have seen everything from the games, and we've seen the character arcs and story, and even a decade later, we still follow it. Like, take Arkham Knight for example. In the end, Batman has to overcome everything, including the exact thing that he tries to invoke, which is fear, and fear of himself. And in order to protect his loved ones and his city, he died, or faked his death, and he killed the persona of Bruce Wayne, and he fully fledged went into full-time balls deep as Batman, and even weaponized the fear gas, which I cannot wait to see. We saw that in the trailers and all. It's in this game, and I'm sure it's going to be fucking awesome. I hope there's some mirroring to the old Scarecrow missions, just because that would be awesome. And I'm sure they're going to do it, hopefully, at least. But the whole point of remaining and keeping the myth alive was for the sake of justice and his crusade, and becoming something bigger and better than before. And now with the League, or his friends, as he says, which is kind of weird to hear him say, but with his friends, or the League, he does complete that goal. So narratively, or like character-wise, I think a lot of the puzzle pieces do fall into place, while some others don't, really. And that's yet another thing that we'll have to just wait for and see on release. And that's my stance on it. Obviously, I'm not the only one talking about it, but I am for it rather than against it. So, you know, it really depends on where you lie and how the game is going to be. The alpha, in my eyes, as you could tell from all of this rambling, was great. I think it was brilliant, but I don't want this to be like a sheep in wolf's clothing and have it be another failure and another basic looter shooter that really is unoriginal and everything the alpha was not. And we'll have to wait and see for the full game, because it definitely could do a whole 360 and turn my entire opinion around. The unfortunate reality of this game is everything that I had mentioned. And that's not because it's bad, but because I think the game is going to be a flop. I really am hoping that the game will succeed and have that passion, have that love and understanding for the universe, while doing everything justice and having a great story to be told. But from the looter shooter aspect to the major changes from the previous games, where it's all based in the same universe, to the Justice League finally getting into a game but them being villains, and you might have to put on earmuffs for this one, but live service content, there's a lot of things that are turning people off and just turning them away. But you got front row seats to my front row seat on the train that is in full throttle and will be here very soon. I am going to make a series on it, but primarily just the main story, and depending on if I like it and if it does well on the channel, I might make more, or if you support it, then you'll get more. So we'll do hand-in-hand exchanges. I think that's all for this one. It was way longer than I intended, but that's usually how it goes. And if you're here still listening to me and on this video, thank you. I appreciate it. You must have enjoyed or wanted to hear something. So leave a like, leave a comment, and subscribe, and come back next time. Either for the next video, or just wait around until I upload more about this game. Your choice. But that's it. Subscribe and join the underworld, and as always, see you next time. This is Ghosty, saying my farewell, and till death do us part.